Okay, I guessed right. I'm not entirely sure why yet. How is that possible? Why did that differ between worlds? The answer is tied to something else that only occurred in B. The call with Suripo. The call with Suripo would have been, I mean, yes, that only occurred in World B. Yes, but the thing is, that happened after he dropped the key, I'm pretty sure, in the other worlds. Like, the call with Suripo is after everyone had woken up again, and isn't him dropping the key before that? So I feel like that doesn't make any sense. The alarm's effects, I think, would have been the same in all three worlds. So I think the handle's removal is the only logical option. So I'm gonna go with that. It was the handle's removal. In World B, Kate went to the secret door ready to leave. However, he immediately left it with his hand. The handle... Oh, felt it. I was thinking, left it? What? Felt it with his hand. The handle wasn't there. He couldn't believe it. He had been outsmarted. Speechless, he froze in place. Of course, as the keyhole had been in the handle, he couldn't even attempt to unlock the door. That is why he didn't notice that he dropped the rusty key in hallway A, and it's why Naomi didn't have the chance to take his suitcase. He understood that he would have to stay in a tower, but he didn't immediately give up, since Sekimeiya was still in the event room, and perhaps he could make use of it. Kate sighed deeply, trying to figure out who could have known about the storeroom's secret. Before anyone could see him, he went to a crystal room in hallway B. He had been told that refrigeration was essential to keep the Sekimeiya stable. He had learned that Ashia had two identical Sekimeiya by himself, but it wasn't public knowledge. Hence, abusing Sin's plan still seemed feasible. He could keep a Sekimeiya for himself as long as Ashia found Sin's fake in the cabinet. That was why he left each Sekimeiya inside different cabinets in room B4. He came to the conclusion that it was a good idea to let the suitcase be found. As he disposed of it, he heard a sound coming from the crystal room he'd just been in. He ran there and saw one of the Sekimeiya on the floor. Atsuki and Shirya had just world switched to world C. He couldn't comprehend it. The Sekimeiya was grey, but nobody was there. Nobody could have escaped after he'd heard the sound. Yet one of the cabinets was open. It was impossible anyone had been there, and the cabinet's temperature hadn't even cooled off yet. He hurriedly put the Sekimeiya back in, still trying to process what could have happened. When he left the room, he saw Erina's group on the floor of the hallway. She was moving slightly, so Kate felt trapped. He didn't want her to wake up and see him leaving. Slowly, he walked over and crouched beside the three incapacitated people. So, does this beg the same question? Why was the handle taken off in B? That's what I was thinking, yes. To begin with, who do you think was responsible for that? That feels like an Atsuki situation for me. But, actually, I think the only person that we know of, well, okay, there's two people that we know of entered the tower through the secret storeroom. That's Shirya and Isla. Now, either of them could be responsible for that. The third option is someone took it off from the inside. I mean, obviously, someone took it off from the inside. What I'm saying is someone else who never left took it off from the inside. Who took the handle off in World B? I think it's one of them. One of the two. Shirya or Isla. When they entered... I don't even know if them entering that world happened in... or entering the tower happened in World B. I don't remember. Huh. Would Shirya have taken the handle off? But Isla taking the handle off? That seems so random, I guess. I mean, Shirya doesn't make it much more. Sai could have just taken it off because Sai's like, whatever. I'll do it. You can't stop me. I think I'm gonna go with Shiria. Is it logical? Not well, I say that. It might be logical, I just don't know the reason for it. Is there logic behind my guess? A little bit. Not a lot. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh my god, as if I have a clue. Oh god. The Shiria that... Oh god. If all of these ask me for an ABC option now, I'm never getting another one of these right. Which Shiria? The Shiria that was originally, like the original Shiria. The original Shiria was the Shiria from World B, wasn't she? But by the time she'd gone back to the tower, had she like completed a full lap of travels through all the worlds? It's my best guess. That's not right. I'm not surprised. Akro A, okay. Why would Akro remove the secret? Let's listen to him. Akro A. He was the main person behind the attack. In his world, however, Sin were outsmarted. Oh yeah, I did kind of forget that he was the main... Okay, true. Did they know about the secret passageway? I don't even remember that. Did Sin know about the secret room? They must have, right? But I'm not sure anymore. The alarm Sin didn't know about went off and the Sekimeiya Akro had hidden in the cleaning cart was taken. Who had been responsible? For a while Akro had no idea. However, eventually he world switched to B with Isla. In that world he was surprised to find out the attic was unlocked and even more so to see that everyone was taking shelter inside a bedroom. There he learned about two things, Kate's presence in the tower and the existence of the storeroom's secret. Naturally he knew who Kate Kruji was, but he shouldn't have been there. Akro had suspected someone from Asia had hindered their plan, so he was eternally taken aback when he heard details about that world's events. Soon, that Akro travelled to the past and appeared on the 24th of November. You remember what Shiria fought, don't you? Out of nowhere he appeared in a detention cell, but he was able to leave it. Then he realized he was in the far past. Yeah, I remember that. He recalled the times Kate had chosen to speak to Ido. He must have been who had interfered with Sin's plan. Kate hadn't been in the tower, yet everyone had eventually claimed he'd been there since the start. It wasn't hard to suspect the truth. However, Akro still couldn't believe what he'd done. In the tower, desperate to fulfill Sin's plan, how had Shiria come back to life? And she had clearly been aware of what he'd done. Why had she not said anything then? Akro had no idea why she had come back, but he had been next to her and asking for hours. He'd seen how they turned out after he'd caused the death of their friend. At first, when he appeared in November, Akro thought of what to do. He could take advantage of it. He knew what would happen. Yet his remorse soon overcame him. His greatest wish was to walk away, and he had the opportunity to do so. The plan was going to be a failure, but he was no longer in his world. Perhaps he could let his other self take the blame while he tried to atone for what he'd done. Of course, due to a certain perspective you viewed, you know that's not what happened. In any case, Akro's actions heavily changed the start of World B's incident. Kate didn't know he dropped the rusty key, and Naomi didn't run to the attic with the suitcase. In Worlds A and C, however, the same thing occurred. In the attic, Naomi touched the Sekimeiya and world switched. When Naomi touched it, she appeared in World B. Her keys remained in World A and the elevator was disabled. Until that changed, she was trapped up there. From her point of view, both Sekimeiya disappeared as she brought her suitcase along as one of her possessions. However, Naomi C's outcome was different. She world switched to A and the range encompassed Shiria as well. Even though the attic was locked, they weren't trapped. Not only did Shiria have the key, but so did Naomi. Although she changed worlds, she grabbed the keys Naomi A had left behind, unaware they were no longer hers. In addition, she brought the suitcase along too, but the Sekimeiya Naomi A had used were both still there. As both Naomi's world switched at exactly the same time, for Naomi C it only seemed as though the Sekimeiya she touched turned grey, even though it was the one Naomi A had activated. Instinctively, what she did was touch the other Sekimeiya, unable to believe her finger had changed a gem's color. When she did, she traveled through time. Since one of the Sekimeiya was powered off, there was no world switch, yes. But did she travel forward or back? Although these beginning sequences evolved into drastically different days, some of the differences between worlds came from before the 15th. Isla's friend only existed in World B. In the other worlds, Isla hadn't been assured everything would go smoothly. Yeah, so she only exists in World B because Akira world traveled with Isla, but Akira appeared in the detained cell, Isla appeared outside somewhere in the world, yes. Nobody had told her she'd be able to touch the Sekimeiya, hence her mood was more dampened and Erina's was lighter. Sai sniffed out that something would occur on the day of the event. However, only in World B was he certain. He had read a forum thread that had foretold what would unfold in the tower. In that world he was much more active from the start. In World A, Akro couldn't see Kate as his enemy, so his attitude toward the others was rougher and sterner. In addition, the article of his escape from prison only existed in World B. In World C, Kate's Sekimeiya were taken by Naomi, so his priorities were very different. In World B, Kate had to step up to Erina's group, while in World C he saw room A5 by himself before everyone else regained consciousness. Do you think there's a relation between all these changes? Oh god. That was so much information at once. I mean, mostly information we already knew, but someone from another world caused them. They had no real origin. There is no correlation. Huh. I don't know. What would I assume the right answer would be, without knowing? There is no correlation. They had no real origin. What's the difference between these two? There's no correlation just means apparently there is an origin to them, but there might be multiple origins. They might not be connected. No correlation. They had no real origin. Someone from another world caused them. What do you mean, another world? Oh, I see what they mean. So the relation between all the changes is that I think it is someone from another world caused them. Yeah, it has to be. That's it. They were caused by someone from another world. Up to the 24th of November, all the worlds were identical. You might be familiar with the many worlds interpretation. According to it, every choice splits the world, leading into infinite worlds which are infinitely different. In these three worlds, the initial difference came in November of 2011, and it was caused due to someone who'd world switched from another world. In other words, there was no change that wasn't influenced by another world. If 0 world switches had occurred, each of the 3 worlds would have remained identical. Yep. Only they caused reality to differ. It was the world switches that shaped this maze, a maze whose walls could be broken. There are numerous enigmas around the world switch. Perhaps you have some lingering questions. Perhaps, you say? When Acro A appeared in World B, the storeroom had been sealed by his future self. However, in part, that helped him go back in time and seal it. Doesn't that seem contradictory? If he had appeared in a world without a sealed storeroom, he wouldn't have been able to go back and seal it. You might find a number of similar cases. For that, you can look at the people who world switched and the way they shaped their new world. If the answer escapes you, that's where you will find it, alongside the real form of the world switch. Yeah, ... That's what I'm thinking. I couldn't just think that infinite worlds existed. I've completely forgot where we were. I think we just spent about an hour answering questions. After all, I might have been going back and forth between two. The first time, Erina had brought us to a different world, but we had eventually returned. Then, when we travelled back to the morning, Shiri and I had changed worlds, but we might have appeared in the same one again. That was why thinking that infinite worlds existed was a bit of a leap. I looked at both Sekimeiya. If I touched one, would the world around me really change? What about the range, the replicated location, the time travelled, and all that nonsense? I walked to the kitchen. There's no glass, there's no water. Can the refrigerator act like the cold cabinet? I opened it and put my hand inside. While it was cold, the temperature didn't seem as low as the Sekimeiya cabinets. There was a regulation mechanism inside, so I changed it to the coldest point. I shot the Sekimeiya inside the refrigerator for a few seconds. When I took it out, I felt it through my shirt. It did work. It was pretty hot before and now it's not. So as long as I keep a Sekimeiya in here, I might not be encompassed within two ranges. I wasn't confident the concept of range I was working with was correct though. I put both Sekimeiya inside to hopefully reset them. A few seconds later, I took one out and set it on the countertop. Theoretically, it should begin to gather energy now, so I'll travel a short distance if I touch it soon. I counted up to a minute in my head. Then I touched the Sekimeiya on the marble. What just happened? I was still in the kitchen, but I had teleported less than a step backward. Huh? The Sekimeiya is powered off just where I touched it. Does that mean that I traveled to the future? I must have gone only a few seconds through time and there's no past self of mine here. Sekimeiya was grey, indicating that I was at a point after my travel. Surprised, I realized I really had traveled forward in time. What was the difference? Why didn't I travel to the past? And the location where I appeared, why was it right next to where I touched the Sekimeiya? It's as if I only moved a tiny bit because I only went a few seconds to the future. I have an idea, but I don't think I can test it. Wait, no, maybe I can. As soon as I put the Sekimeiya in the refrigerator, it regained its white color. However, I ignored that and ran to the staircase. It appeared the crystal floor was still empty, but I couldn't know for certain. Quietly, I walked to the security room. All the screens were still black, but they weren't my focus. I began to look everywhere I could. Sai said he found the voice recorder here, but perhaps he hasn't yet. I might be able to be the one to find it in this world. And I did. Behind one of the monitors on the wall, I found the device that had been in Isla's purse. When I pressed the record button, a line appeared on the screen. Above it, numbers began to count the recorded seconds. There was no saved recording this time. That wasn't strange. After all, the recorder in Isla's purse had to have traveled from the future, while the one in the security room was the original one. However, my intention wasn't to record anything. I wanted to use the device as a timer that I could hold. Back in the attic, I stepped into the kitchen again. Both Sekimeiya were still in the refrigerator, but I didn't want to take one out yet. Instead, I powered on the oven and set it to finish after 10 minutes. Then, at the same time that the oven began to count down, I pressed the record button. Immediately, the seconds began to count up on the device's screen. With this setup, I can know the amount of time I'm traveling. I held the recorder in my hand so that it would always be in my possession. When the oven's timer showed 9 minutes, the device had hit 1 minute. Meanwhile, I thought back on the many travels I'd experienced, wondering if there was any idea I could apply to every single one. When 3 minutes had been recorded, I took the Sekimeiya I had last used out of the refrigerator and left it on the countertop. So, it started gaining energy after 3 minutes had gone by. I didn't stop staring at the ticking timer. A few seconds later, I brought my hand close to the Sekimeiya. I didn't touch it yet though. I had to make sure I did so at the appropriate time. Above the Sekimeiya, my hand patiently hovered. As soon as the recorder and the oven hit 5 minutes, I touched it. Once again, I'd hardly moved through space. I was still in the kitchen, staring at the Sekimeiya. However, it was grey, meaning that I was in the future. Immediately, I looked at the oven. Its timer indicated that 4 minutes and 15 seconds still remained. Right after that, I glanced at my own hand, eager to look at my timer. The device was there, and the time on the screen was... Okay, wait. 4 minutes and 15 seconds still remained. Okay, God. So, he set it to 10 minutes and it was counting down as far as I remember. Started gaining energy after 3 minutes had gone by. What happened there? Okay. I didn't touch it yet. I had to make sure I did so at the appropriate time. For some reason I completely forgot about the as soon as the oven and the recorder hit 5 minutes. What is going on? Okay. Its timer indicated that 4 minutes and 15 seconds still remained. Right after that, I glanced at my own hand, eager to look at my timer. How would I... Oh, I have to... So, now the problem is... Wait, so we're assuming... Okay, I'm overthinking questions again. This is like back in school in math class. Because the game probably wants us to assume that there's like no... Between like the 4 minutes and 15 seconds and him looking at his hand at the timer, at the recorder, no time had passed, which is probably not true. Like a second or two might have passed, or would have passed, but we don't know that. So we can't say for sure. So the only, so I'm assuming the game wants us to ignore that. So there's two possible answers there. Possible answer A, 5 minutes, 0 seconds. Possible answer B, 5 minutes, 45 seconds. Those are the two possible answers. That I think neither of them would be correct in a real scenario because like a second or two would have passed. And we couldn't know how many exactly. But for the purposes of this, one of those two. Now, the only question that we're left with is, would the recorder have gone, like, would those seconds have passed on the recorder, or would it just go to the future with the same time as before? Now, I think the right answer to that, you can possibly figure out knowing all that you know now with all of the time Sai looked at his watch. But that was ages ago. And I think even then still, it's hard to tell. I think I'm gonna go with this. Well, it says, so it would probably want it to be put in like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's wrong, but I'm gonna go with that. 4:15? What? How does that make any sense? Wait, what? Wait. Huh? I'm so confused. Go on. But while the device's screen changed to 4:16, the oven's timer went to 4:14. Huh? I'm so lost. Like before, the recorder kept counting up, whereas the oven counted down. Wait, okay. Huh? Huh? Huh. I touched the Sekimeiya at the 5-minute mark and went 45 seconds into the future. Okay, so what it did is it reset the recorder 45 seconds into the past. Why and how? Okay, I touched the Sekimeiya at the 5-minute mark and went 45 seconds into the future. That's a little odd. The Sekimeiya gathered energy for 2 minutes. The times it gathered energy for 15 minutes, we went 20 minutes through time. Yeah, that is a little odd. The most important thing though is that although I went 45 seconds to the future, the recorder seems to have gone 45 seconds backward in time. That must mean that the replicated location was from 45 seconds before I touched the Sekimeiya. Okay. Okay. So, we're replicating locations and therefore possessions based on the time that you've gone to the future, but taken back to the past. So in the past, in one of the earlier chapters, if someone traveled 15 minutes to the future, his replicated location and possessions would have been from 15 minutes in the past. Okay. That left me thinking, but the train of thought was interrupted by the Sekimeiya. It turned white a few seconds after my reappearance. This is strange too. It took almost 2 minutes to power back on, but it spent about 5 minutes powered off, when Sai and Shiria disappeared from the event room. I had to do it again. I turned off the oven and erased the recording. Next I set the oven on to 5 minutes and pressed the device's record button at the same time. I left the Sekimeiya in the refrigerator until 2 minutes had elapsed. Then 30 seconds later, when the recorder displayed 2:30, I touched the gem again. The immediate result was the same. I appeared in the kitchen, pretty much where I'd already been standing. I looked at both timers at once. The two of them showed 2:21, yet the device's timer kept ticking up while the ovens counted down. What the fuck? Again, I went 9 seconds to the future, but the location I appeared in was from 9 seconds before touching the Sekimeiya. Is this it? Does traveling to the future X amount of time replicate the location in space you were at X amount of time in the past? What about traveling back though? I've gone to the future 3 times in a row. The only idea I had was to use the other Sekimeiya, so I put the one I'd been using in the refrigerator. I set up the same conditions with the oven's timer at 5 minutes as I began a new recording. That time, when 2 minutes had elapsed, I took the other Sekimeiya out, then 30 seconds later I activated it. What? The result was almost identical. I appeared in the kitchen, very close to where I'd been. However, someone was in front of me. It was my past self. I remained completely still, just like a deer caught in headlights. The back of my own head was in front of my eyes. But it didn't remain there for long. Quickly my figure disappeared, revealing the powered off Sekimeiya. I see. I just traveled through time and the Sekimeiya's range was so small that it didn't pick me up again. It does seem like I went 9 seconds to the past. It's probably due to the Sekimeiya I used. This one makes you travel to the past while the other one sends you to the future. The oven's timer was at 2:25, so I hurried to look at the voice recorder as I thought about it. I had gone 9 seconds to the past, so upon appearing the oven's timer would have been at 2:39. Then I had waited out 9 seconds needed for my past self to disappear and 5 extra seconds had elapsed since. Before the oven's timer counted down to 2:24, I looked at the device between my hands. Okay, so if this is just a math question and it works exactly the same way, there was no time displayed. I think that was the case at some stage, wasn't it? With the watch, where it was where it might have been broken. Okay, I think we're gonna math this. If the answer is there was no time displayed, then let that be. The oven's timer was at 225. The oven's timer would have been at 239. So the timer on the recording would have been at recording went back, so it would have also been at 239, right? If they both work the same way. And then 15 seconds had passed in that. Oh, 14 seconds had passed in that. So it's either 253, or there was no time displayed, or 230, 50, or it's 244. It's possible. I think 225 and 235 make no sense. I think that the math works out to this. I think this is a perfectly reasonable answer that could be plausible based on information that I do not remember or know. I think that's a weird answer that might work out if it just also... you know what? I'm gonna answer that. Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. I kind of expected that. The screen is blank. What the hell? Why? I can't know where this location is from. Traveling 9 seconds to the future put me where I've been 9 seconds in the past. Wouldn't traveling to the past put me where I'd been 9 seconds in the future? And I'm still here, exactly where I appeared. But then why is the screen... Wait, no. It might make sense. Let's say the Sekimeiya is touched at time t. In this case, t is 230. X will refer to the time travel, will refer to the travel time, which is 9 seconds. Let's assume that traveling X seconds to the past copies your state X seconds after touching the Sekimeiya. What would the time on the device be upon appearing? T plus X, or 239. Then 2x seconds would pass to reach the future state. Your timer would read t plus 3x, or 257, but that contradicts the past position. The timer at arrival would have to be t plus 3x. But nothing stops this from continuing. Another 2x seconds would be added. So it's a time loop essentially that goes to infinity, and the battery would run out. Yep, the recorder's time would add up infinitely, and eventually its battery would run out. That's where we have the size fucking watch show the maximum possible time and the battery running out. Yeah, okay, fair. This can't make sense though. If the replicated location is one that occurs after touching the Sekimeiya, we would die. Just like with the recorder's timer, my age would have increased by a few seconds repeatedly, making me die instantly upon traveling to the past. Okay. If the device aged in a loop until it ran out of batteries, its appearance would have changed too. It would have appeared rusty, and it's hard to believe it wouldn't have disintegrated. However, isn't this what happened to Sai's watch? Yeah. Not only to Sai, but to a Sai who I have to assume traveled to the past. When I saw him, he should have been in the attic, so he'd come from the future. Later I learned his watch had stopped working again. If he appeared 5 minutes in the past, where he would be 10 minutes after his appearance, the time of his watch would have increased by 10 minutes infinitely, and the battery would have eventually stopped working. There's no way it would have lasted thousands of years though, so what the hell? And why would the watch's inner mechanism add up the loop time while his outer appearance wasn't affected? The recorder isn't working anymore, so I can't keep testing. Wait, no, I can make it work again if what I've concluded is correct. After all, just minutes ago I was holding it when it worked. I just have to replicate that location, which should be easy. I only have to travel a couple minutes to the future. That was what I did. I put the broken recorder in a drawer and traveled to the future. When I appeared, I was holding the device. The timer on its screen said 1:35, as it was still working. This is definitely how traveling to the future works then. But what about traveling to the past? Did all those travels work like this as well? The first time I went to the past, I appeared in the lobby, right in front of the hallway A door. I later determined I'd gone about 20 minutes to the past. So 20 minutes after the point I touched the Sekimeiya. I was in the lobby, right in front of the hallway A door. I was watching the hallway while the others looked through every room. Seriously? Is this what's been happening? Later, Shiria and I traveled about 40 minutes to the past, appeared in the security room sitting down. However, the chair wasn't there to support me, so I fell to the floor. 40 minutes after the time we touched the Sekimeiya, I really was in a security room, looking at the computer. Sai just ran away from me, and I even looked at the time. I was there from 12:18 to 12:31. Even Shiria, she said she'd appeared in the second floor partitions, and when we reunited outside the security room, she'd just been searching for me through every floor, starting from the top. Both of us had just been in the locations we'd appeared. I could hardly believe it, but I finally knew the logic behind what had agonizingly eluded me, the replicated location. But hang on, does this mean that every time we touched the Sekimeiya and appeared in a location we recognized, we'd gone to the future? It's only traveling to the future that replicates a past coordinate you've been at. This is absurd though, it doesn't even make sense. Why the hell did I appear in the security room in the past? Because I was later in the security room? That's nonsense. Why the security room? If I had appeared in the attic, for example, I would have been somewhere else 80 minutes later. I was only in the security room in the future because it's where I appeared in the past. Why the hell did I not appear in another continent? Then in the future I would have been there, so I could have appeared there. It's absurd. What's actually determining where we appear? Something must be. We appeared inside the tower every single time. Shiria and Atsuki had spent a long time in the elevator. Thanks. Oh, this is going back to that one ending, isn't it? Thanks to the stop button, they had managed to escape from Sai. But Shiria soon noticed something was happening to Atsuki. He looked pale and his breathing had sped up. Are you okay? Yes, don't worry. Shiria stared at her lap, worried about Atsuki's thoughts. Did he perhaps think they wouldn't be able to leave? The silence went on for a long time. Eventually Shiria experienced some relief. Atsuki had closed his eyes and he didn't appear to be as stressed, because he was dead. Joking. Mirroring him, Shiria closed her eyes too. Minutes later, both pairs of eyes shot open at the same time, and Shiria couldn't believe what she saw. Will we finally figure out or find out what they saw? A knife was buried in Atsuki's chest. She looked directly into his eyes, but only silence filled the elevator. Neither of them could bring themselves to utter a word. Then Shiria looked at the hand gripping the knife. She followed it up to an arm and then a shoulder. Wait, so what did I assume back then? Who did I assume the murderer was? I think I said it's Shiria, didn't I? I feel like I remember that. Okay, it is just Sai, okay. Finally she traced it to Sai's face. But that sight didn't last long. Immediately after killing his first victim, Sai felt the urge to have a second. With a frantic motion, the knife sliced Shiria's chest. Before she could process the scene, Shiria's body fell beside Atsuki, the blood pooling together in the elevator. Of course you know this never occurred. If it had though, how would it have come to happen? Sai stared at both bodies momentarily. However, he didn't immediately understand that he was trapped. Atsuki had pressed the stop button so Sai couldn't leave the elevator. He couldn't move either. Two bodies were on the floor. Eventually, when the replicated location took place, Sai was exactly where he'd appeared. But why? He was able to be there in the future because he had appeared there in the past. Why had that been the location where he'd appeared? Why not somewhere else? Maybe you have a good idea. No, I don't. I had no idea. I agree, Atsuki. It seemed to make no sense at all. Do I have a good idea? No, I don't. But what the hell would happen now if I traveled to the past? Let's say I travel 2 minutes back and appear in the kitchen. Will it be guaranteed that I'll be in the kitchen 4 minutes later? What if I don't want to? What if I decide to leave? Does the location where I appear force me to be somewhere in the future? That makes even less sense. I frowned, curious. What would actually happen? I'd never traveled with knowledge of how the replicated location worked, but it seemed like having that knowledge alone would break the rule. I would no longer replicate the location in the future through some weird unconscious fate. I mean, if I do appear in the kitchen, can I refuse to be there in the future? Can I risk doing that just out of curiosity? Please do. What if it's the universe's rule? Would I end up not trying to go against it out of fear of what might happen, which would confirm the impossibility of being in a paradoxical location? That's pretty similar to not attempting to change the past just in case it's not possible, but it can't be fought, can it? Yes, it's very similar, and yet it doesn't make sense. Why would I purposely be somewhere just because it's where I appeared in the past? I wonder, can I maybe take advantage of it? It doesn't seem fair that figuring out how it works would be a detriment if I intend to travel back. Until now the rule has been consistent through mere fate, but it wouldn't be the same if I was aware of it as it happened. A way to put the knowledge into use. Maybe as long as I have accurate knowledge. I put the Sekimeiya that had sent me to the past in the refrigerator. After I waited a bit, I took it back out. I set the timer and waited half a minute. Then, I brought my hand towards its glow. Alright, will you send me to the living room? That was where I appeared, in the middle of the room. And so I waited. I traveled 9 seconds to the past, so the only mandatory rule was that I had to be there after 8 seconds. But I didn't wait there because the universe had forced me to. I did it so that my request could be fulfilled. 18 seconds later, I was still there. Before touching the Sekimeiya, I had thought of what would happen. I thought that 18 seconds after appearing in the past, I would be in the living room. Of course, if that was the case, it implied I would appear in the living room, so it was what happened. Then, to make it possible, I'd remained there, exactly where I'd imagined myself appearing. I see. So this is the opposite of useless. It's like the thought-up loops that I came up with. As long as the loop is in my head before touching the Sekimeiya, and as long as it can be executed, it will work. As long as it can be executed, didn't I just travel from the 5th of January to the 15th of December? I went 21 days into the past, and my knowledge of the replicated location came after the travel, but before the location is replicated in the future. What the hell happens now? True, that would mean that on the 26th of January, he would also have to be in the tower, wouldn't it? I appeared in the lobby. Does that confirm that I'll be alive in the future? Doesn't this travel genuinely force me to be in the lobby on the day? I went 21 days to the past. 21 days after January 5th is a Thursday, January 26th. There was something there. That wasn't some random day. Shira and I had talked with Mia about it. We'd said that we would go back to the tower on the 26th if we liked it the first time. Mia had died because of the Sekimeiya. Without the Sekimeiya's existence, the explosion wouldn't have occurred, and Mia would have kept on living. Ashia held an event in the tower every Thursday, and on January 26th, a Thursday, an event that had grabbed her attention would take place. If the Sekimeiya hadn't existed, we would have been in the tower on January 26th, even after Mia's death if no travels had taken place. It was feasible that Shiri and I would have returned to continue healing and moving forward, but from what I understood, our reason for returning would be different, to satisfy a travel that had already happened. What was the exact truth hidden behind that? I didn't know, but it confirmed again that the locations where we appeared were in no way random. This means that I can pretty much teleport anywhere I want, doesn't it? I just have to think about where I'll be in the future. The limit is that the location has to be possible to reach in a set time. Is that it? I went to the kitchen and briefly put the past Sekimeiya in the refrigerator. Then, once it had stored energy for 30 seconds, I touched it. Once more, I appeared in the living room where I'd wanted to appear. I looked at my hands, but they were empty. I see. I guess that was too nonsensical to work. Before touching the Sekimeiya, I had thought that I'd be in the living room with a chocolate bar in my hands. Then I would appear there with the chocolate, and I would be able to have it in the future so that it could appear in the past. Presumably that hadn't worked because I could never have obtained that chocolate in the span of those seconds, so I went back to the kitchen after I waited the proper amount of time. Once again, I touched the past Sekimeiya after it had gathered energy for 30 seconds. After I appeared in the living room, I looked at my hands. I was holding a pen. Then I looked next to the television and saw the same pen. I see. This does work. Before touching the Sekimeiya, I'd thought that I would appear in the living room and that during those 18 seconds I would go grab the pen. That was why I had appeared with it. However, I already had the pen. In other words, I didn't have to go get it. I could simply stay where it appeared so I could appear with it. 18 seconds went by and I didn't step away from where it appeared. So even though I never obtained the pen myself, I was able to appear with it solely because I could have obtained it. I effectively duplicated the pen, but I can't spawn objects that don't exist, or I can't feasibly obtain before the future coordinate like the chocolate. And this only happened because I thought of my actions before touching the Sekimeiya. It was a fascinating concept and a ridiculously strong one. Simply by being aware of a single rule, the Sekimeiya had grown drastically more useful. If now I touch the past Sekimeiya while I'm holding the pen, I'll appear with it in the past. However, that's possible only as long as I have it in a proportional future. Meaning that if when I touch the Sekimeiya, I either think that I'll let go of the pen before the time expires or otherwise wouldn't have it, I won't appear with it. I would be instantly fading the pen out of existence without having to actually get rid of it. Even though I should appear with it, I wouldn't. Huh. Wait, Shiria's phone? I don't remember Shiria's phone. What happened with her phone? Where would that have even been? In chapter 1? Yeah, I feel like they didn't have their phone. Yeah, so I mean this was from chapter 1, apparently not in there. Okay, and there's no phone there either. Okay, that was Shiria's phone. But when she traveled to the future. I mean, this is all just probably useless to what we've got now. I don't think this makes any sense. So the cleaning card. I mean, the knife is what makes the most sense, right? Surely that's what we're trying to explain here. Because who cares what happened to the cleaning card? I mean, maybe slightly, but I mean, if it's not the knife, then what else would they be getting at here? The knife disappeared from Shiria's purse when she traveled to the future because she didn't have it in the past, so it would have been impossible for her to appear with it. But on January 5th, when she traveled to the past to December 15th, she noticed that out of the things she'd been holding, only her phone had disappeared. She didn't think about it, but the SIM card did as well, and her clothes had changed. Why? She appeared in the lobby of the tower, and the future coordinate was January 26th. I'm sure you haven't forgotten that phones are extremely prohibited in a tower. She couldn't have been there with it in the future, so she appeared without it in the past. Oh, that's what they're talking about. Okay, yep. True. Wait, in the lobby though? Oh, I guess he did say it got taken off of them outside. Yeah, okay. This is pretty insane. I can't believe the mechanics actually followed some rules. I was overwhelmed by the number of things I was learning, but I didn't want to focus on a single detail. I didn't know if anyone else would come back at some point, and there were plenty of things I was wondering about. How much can I figure out with what I know? Was Sai aware of all this? He had a wristwatch, so I bet it would have been a lot easier for him to learn some of it. There were 2 Sekimeiya since the morning, but what about the third one? Does that one never work? And one made us travel back in time while the other sent us forward. If I know the times someone appeared in the future, I can know that's where they were in the past. There are many ways to apply all of this. I guess so that also means that they can replicate the Sekimeiya quite easily. But maybe that one just I don't know. I wonder if when someone travels to the past, I think that I'll bring them somewhere in the future. Would I make them appear there in the past? Could the origin be in my mind even though I'm not the one traveling? Huh, interesting thought. I tried to calm down a bit and went to the kitchen. It was better to answer the larger questions first. Wait a second, I can duplicate anything obtainable, can't I? He's figured it out. We wondered whether duplicating the Sekimeiya was possible, but it doesn't appear to be the case. When it's activated, it doesn't count as something you possess and it stays behind. Oh yeah, true. Well, but is that also true for when it's powered off? Now I'm certain that the Sai with the broken wristwatch had come from the future, and he had a Sekimeiya in his hip pack. He acted as if he didn't know it had been there, so perhaps that was the truth. Maybe he appeared with it. An important detail is that it was inactive. If in the future he hid a powered off Sekimeiya in his hip pack, it's possible he appeared with it in the past. Yeah, trying it should have been simple. First, I used the past Sekimeiya to travel 9 seconds to the past. In the living room, I waited 18 seconds before I re-entered the kitchen. The Sekimeiya will now spend a little while powered off. I took the future Sekimeiya out of the refrigerator and grabbed the disabled past Sekimeiya. Half a minute later, I left it on the countertop and touched the future Sekimeiya. I appeared in the kitchen 9 seconds in the future, then I glanced at my hands. Okay. Huh. Okay. We know traveling to the past does replicate items. We know traveling to the future with the recorder did keep the recorder in his hands. But the recorder went back to the past, into a past state, which would mean, would the Sekimeiya return to a past state where it was activated? Oh god. I'm just gonna say it's not. Is it there or not? I don't know. There's too many variables for me. I'm gonna say it's not there. Okay, it was there. Yep, okay, fair enough. It was there. Still grey. I had it in my hands. I overthought it. Did I really duplicate it? I looked at the marble where I'd left the past Sekimeiya before traveling. What's not there? The future Sekimeiya was where I touched it, and it was grey. That proved I'd traveled to the future. However, the original past Sekimeiya was gone. I hadn't duplicated it. What the hell? Can the Sekimeiya not be duplicated? It seems like the original one disappeared when I appeared with it in the future and disallowed the duplication. There's no way anyone came and took it during the 9 seconds I wasn't there, right? I kind of wonder why he tried it out with trying to duplicate the past Sekimeiya. Why would he not try to duplicate the future Sekimeiya, since he already knows how that one would work? Like, basically, he tried to duplicate a possession by going to the future, when we're not quite sure that works yet. Why would he not have traveled to the future first, therefore deactivating the future Sekimeiya, and then try to duplicate that by going to the past? Surely that's the way you do it, because you know that could work. You experience that working with a pen. We know there's some weird shenanigans going on by traveling to the future with something, as seen with the recorder. It was bizarre, but the fact that I'd appeared with it was notable. It had counted as one of my past possessions. While I was thinking, the past Sekimeiya powered on. It's still working. I wonder if the fact that it was powered off mattered at all. I repeated the same process but held the powered past Sekimeiya with my sleeves for half a minute. Then I left it in the refrigerator to avoid overlapping ranges and went 9 seconds to the future. I didn't appear with the Sekimeiya. My hands looked to be holding something that wasn't there. Yeah, I figured that would happen. I opened the refrigerator and saw the past Sekimeiya where I'd just left it. So it did matter that it wasn't active. When it isn't, its powers fade temporarily and it acts as a normal object. What would happen if I did the reverse of this? Wouldn't the past change? If I go to the past holding the powered off future Sekimeiya, I would appear with it in the past, so the original one would disappear. That means that I couldn't hold it anymore when I'm traveling to the past, thereby changing it. I tried it out of curiosity. Holding the future Sekimeiya that I'd powered off, I went 9 seconds to the past. In the living room, however, I didn't have the future Sekimeiya between my hands. It didn't work? I thought that I would stay here for 18 seconds with the Sekimeiya, so that's strange. Suddenly I heard a sound coming from the kitchen. It scared me at first, but I immediately understood what it had been. 9 seconds later, I entered through the door. The disabled Sekimeiya was on the floor. It hadn't disappeared alongside my past self. Why though? I don't get it. Wait, no, I might have an idea. Right. Possibly. But so what? Sending the future Sekimeiya to the past would be paradoxical. But why? Let me read through again what exactly he tried. Yeah, I think the sentence, wouldn't the past change, I couldn't hold it anymore, is working off of the assumption that you can't duplicate the Sekimeiya, which I wasn't sure of until that point. What causes a world switch? A world switch is caused if traveling within range of both active Sekimeiya. Would that have happened? I don't think so. Why would it have? That makes no sense to me. I don't know why, because it's an infinity loop? You know what, I'm just gonna say it, I don't know why. I think it's due to the infinite loop concept I thought of. If I had appeared with the powered off future Sekimeiya in the past, 18 seconds later it would have been closer to powering on. Once the infinite loop is applied, the Sekimeiya could have never appeared powered off. And when it's powered on, it doesn't count as a normal object. I believe that's why it didn't travel. What the hell would happen if I wait in the middle of the living room for a few seconds, move the sofa to where I'd been standing, and then travel to the future? My appearance would collide with the sofa, but what exactly would happen? Would I overwrite part of the sofa? Would it cut off my legs and kill me? It's too risky to test that, but I have no idea what the result would be. After all, I've been appearing where there is air, and it seems I'm overwriting it, or else it would also kill me. The case might be different if I appear on top of a solid object, though. That is what happened to... wait. Please tell me... Oh god. If I appear on top of a solid object... Who traveled through time? Who appeared somewhere? I remember Atsuki in multiple instances appeared where an object wasn't there anymore. Like on the chair in the security room, but the chair wasn't there. So he fell to the floor. I think it happened one more time. Did anyone ever appear on top of a solid object? I guess technically Isla might have appeared in the cabinet. But is in the cabinet on top of a solid object? Who appeared on top of a solid object? Where did Akro appear in his travels? I don't think we ever really saw him appear. I think he was in the bathroom for one of them, but you don't really know. I think Sai makes no sense. I think Erina makes no sense. I think Naomi makes no sense. I think it's either Atsuki or Isla. Which version of them? God, what do I know? Wait, how exactly is it phrased? Well, now the thing is this question posed in a kind of, look, this is the world asking you a question, Atsuki has nothing to do with this way? Because if Atsuki is saying that is what happened to... Well, he could say that is what happened to myself back... you know what? Why not? We're going with Isla. But which Isla would have appeared in the cabinet? Oh god, it's been like half an hour to an hour. I don't remember what world is what. B is the standard one. Isla, which Isla? C is the one that ended up empty, isn't it? It could, huh? I don't think it's C. And Akra and Isla traveled from A, so it's not A. Isla B? B or C? We'll go with B. Psi A, okay, sure. Psi A. In his world, he was the first person to leave room B4, in which everyone waited. Okay. After his departure, he never came back. He was never again seen alive. I don't remember this. Unaware of what awaited him, he touched a future Sekimeiya that had been hidden in the attic. For a prolonged period of time, he had been sitting against the door in a crystal room. However, when he appeared there in the future, that door had been opened. Oh, I think I do remember that now, actually. Wasn't there something about him being split in half? About a gruesome... That was there, wasn't it? Not there. Also not there, I think? It was there, wasn't it? Yeah. Sayomiya split in half in hallway B. There it is. As if I'd remember that. That's such a small detail. But yeah, okay, it was there. It was there. Would I have figured out it's Psi A? No. Probably not. But, okay. You're split in half, sure. I've been figuring all of this out, but I still don't fully understand the most important aspect. The amount of time traveled. I've been repeatedly traveling 9 seconds through time, so it has to be consistent as well. 30 seconds stored equals to 9 seconds traveled. 2 minutes stored equals to 45 seconds traveled. It's got to be exponential, right? There's already an indication here. Each stored second turns into more amount of time traveled than the previous. In the first case, each second stored added 0.3 seconds traveled. In the second case, each second stored added 0.37 seconds traveled. And it's evident this keeps going. 15 minutes stored led into 20 minutes traveled. In that case, each second stored added 1.3 seconds. Okay, is it exponential or is it a gradual increase? A consistent, linear, that's the word. Earlier, keeping the Sekimeiya out of the cabinet for 25 minutes made me travel about 45 minutes to the past. That's a pretty noticeable increase. Each stored second would have counted for 1.8 seconds traveled. Okay. Wait, so we have 15 for 1.3, 25 for 1.8. 40, So the more time it's gathered, the larger the increase is. It's exponential. Okay, the difference between 5 and 10 minutes is very little compared to the difference between 20 and 25. Okay, then it's exponential, yes. For a while the numbers will be low, but there'll be a point where they'll suddenly become immense. Once the Sekimeiya has been out of the cabinet for 35 minutes, how much will one stored second equal to? What about after an hour? There's an indication that I'm correct about this. Akuro and Shirya, yeah. They traveled days through time, and so did I. Akuro said he touched the Sekimeiya while we were in the attic's bedroom, so it's very possible that it stored energy for a long time. In any case, the increase of time traveled is not gradual. However, I think something might be. The space component? There is no other component, is there? There's time and space. The range. Ah, right. Is space and range? The range. Yeah, true, that was a component. I maybe could have thought about that a little more. That's what all the travels indicate. Although I'm still a little confused by it, I believe it must work under a gradual increase. Otherwise, when Akuro and Shirya traveled days through time, we would have traveled as well. There is something else that could follow a similar progression: the time it spends recovering. No matter the amount of time traveled, the Sekimeiya always spends a while grey. However, the amount of time stored seems to gradually add to the guaranteed amount. There's gotta be a formula behind the amount of time traveled that every travel follows. What could it be? A formula that increases the amount each second adds as more seconds have passed. If I could figure it out, I could use the Sekimeiya to appear at any point in time. Thankfully, if it doesn't change over time, I could do small-scale tests to figure out what exactly would occur at a larger scale. Observing the difference between 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 and 35 stored seconds might be all I need to understand what 1 hour of stored time would cause. But my way to measure time isn't precise, and I can't measure decimals. I might need a calculator too, and I don't know if there'd be one here in the attic. Why was I so preoccupied with the idea? Was it due to mere curiosity? No, that wasn't all. At some point I had realized it. While locked in a tower for 12 hours, I'd spent a long time trying to figure out if saving Mia was possible, and I knew at that moment that it was. However, those thoughts had all faded from my mind. Shirya had caused me to abandon the idea of saving her. But I'd learned that hadn't been the real Shirya, and it made a lot of sense. She would never have said that. She had wanted to save Mia just like me, and had been prepared to do it once I told her it was possible. Had I truly heard Mia earlier? That voice continually replayed in my head, but I couldn't understand the circumstances around it. I don't know how reasonable this is. After a while of storing time, being off by even a single decimal would result in a substantial difference. Even if I analyze repeated short travels to the future, it might take me a really long time to come up with an accurate equation with just these two timers. I had no idea how long I'd be alone in the tower for, but I couldn't afford to spend hours perfecting a formula. I didn't even know if it was consistent in the first place. My mind went back to a thought I'd had long in the past. When I'd originally conceived of 4-up loops, I'd also considered a particular scenario. Depending on how it works, the possibilities could be limitless. There's even a higher step to reach. It's considerably different, but it follows along with a few things I thought about earlier, regarding the date displayed on Sai's watch. Out of the countless examples, could you go back in time, trade information with someone, write it all down and leave it all on a note that you'd see before traveling through time. You'd read the note and go back to the past. However, since you would already know the contents of it, you have no reason to exchange the information. All you'd have to do would be to leave behind the note you'd read so that you could read it before traveling. The note itself would be a paradox that you caused, but was the past truly changed? Was a past in which you exchanged information truly overwritten, or did it never exist in the first place? If Sci's watch got to 9,999 on the 12th of December, 31st of December, by spending infinite time in a loop, did the pasts in which the time counted up to that date really exist in any capacity? Would something like that actually be possible? I don't have the time needed to find an equation that lets me calculate time values for the Sekimeiya, but as long as it's possible to find, could I use something like this to obtain it? How long would it take me to find it? Maybe 2 hours of monitoring innumerable travels? If I extrapolate my old scenario to this, it would look something like going 2 hours back in time, spending them working to find a formula and noting it down on a piece of paper that I would hide inside a drawer. Before traveling 2 hours back, I would find the note, and in the past, as I would already know the formula, I would just have to write it down and leave it in a drawer. But this isn't applicable, because if I go 2 hours back, I won't have access to the Sekimeiya. I've been testing with them, so if I go back and use them, I'll be changing the past, and the note will not be written in my current reality. But what if I change it up a little? Let's say I take the past Sekimeiya out of the refrigerator. 2 minutes later, I touch it and go 45 seconds back. I'm not even sure if this first travel would be needed, but it might be. Then 45 seconds later, my original self will disappear, and I'll spend 2 hours testing with both Sekimeiya to come up with the right formula. Once I have it, I'll go back in time to a point before I travel the 45 seconds and write down the formula. Before traveling the 45 seconds, I'll read the note with the formula. Then 45 seconds in the past, I'll write it down so that my original self can see it. Would this allow me to spend 2 hours finding the formula without actually having to waste that time? There was no point in assuming an answer because it was easy to test. I readied myself to perform the loop and started to store time with the past Sekimeiya. However, when I looked at the drawer where I wanted the note to be hidden, it was empty. Okay, why did it not work? The success of the loop required the existence of hypothetical events. In reality, if I'd seen the notes, I would never have spent 2 hours working to find the formula. Those events would only have existed in a hypothetical history. As afterward, once their results was known, their existence would have become unneeded. Am I mistaken then? Is this concept just unworkable? That can't be. It's the same thing as the recorder powering off when I go to the past. The hypothetical realities in which it progressively loses battery need to exist in order for it to appear without power in the real one. I didn't fully understand that though, as the recorder not degrading physically still didn't make sense to me. What if it didn't work because 2 hours wouldn't have been enough to determine the formula? Or what if during those 2 hours people would have shown up and I would have been unable to continue and go to the past to leave the note behind? If 2 hours wouldn't have been enough, what about 10? What if it would have taken me more than 20 hours to refine the formula until it was consistent with every travel? The tower will open at 9 PM, so assuming no one else comes, even in a hypothetical world, I would only have until 9 to experiment. Actually, probably way less than that, because to travel to the past and appear in the tower, I'd have to be inside it hours after 9 PM. But assuming I had all the time I needed, would I be able to use a hypothetical world to my advantage? Could I make use of countless hours without actually spending any? I considered that there might have been a way to test it. I took the past Sekimeiya out and pressed play on the recorder. Then I went to the living room with the past Sekimeiya and the recorder and closed the door to the kitchen. I had to think very thoroughly about it. Instead of using a single hypothetical world, what if I used multiple at once by making it recursive? If I touch the Sekimeiya when 15 minutes have passed, I'll go 20 minutes to the past. But before I touch it, I'll open the door to the hallway and find a notepad from the bedrooms on the floor. Depending on what it says, I'll do one of three things. 1. If it has a formula written down, I'll go 20 minutes to the past, obtain the notepad, write the formula down and leave it in the hallway. 2. If I don't find a notepad, I'll go 20 minutes to the past and using the future Sekimeiya in the kitchen, I'll start to work toward finding the formula. Before 20 minutes pass, I'll obtain a notepad from the bedrooms and in the top left corner of the first page, I'll write a 1 along with the progress I made in those 20 minutes. Then I'll leave it in the hallway. 3. If I find a notepad that doesn't contain the formula, it will have my current progress along with a number in the top left corner of the first page, which will indicate the amount of iterations that have occurred so far. I'll go back to the past and using the information I read in the notepad, I'll start working to find the formula. Before the 20 minutes pass, I'll write down the updated progress in a notepad from the bedrooms, increase the number I saw in the top left corner by 1 and then leave the notepad in the hallway. This makes use of infinite time. By repeatedly using these 20 minutes across multiple hypothetical worlds, I can carry my progress over until the formula is found. I'm able to compress years worth of calculations into a single 20-minute loop. Then, since all the worlds will collapse into a final result, if this concept is viable, I'll always find the real formula behind the hallway door. Actions 2 and 3 are only for the hypothetical worlds. As another final point, if the number in the top left corner exceeds, say, 1 billion, then I can be confident that no answer exists. I realize the plan had a small flaw. But if in a real world I open the hallway door and find no notepad, I'll think that the plan hasn't worked and won't go through with the first loop. In the same way, the first hypothetical version of me, instead of assuming that he's about to start the first iteration, would assume that the plan is flawed and wouldn't start the sequence. In other words, for the plan to work, if I go to the hallway right now and don't find a notepad, I'll have to execute the first loop. This is okay because even though the plan wouldn't work for me, I'd have to resort to trying to find a formula manually in the real world, so executing the first loop would work toward that, and it would make the plan succeed if the concept is viable. That's a lot of hypotheticals. 13 minutes had passed. I hadn't heard anything in the attic. If another version of me had been ready to pass the formula on to me, he'd been very quiet. Still completely clueless as to whether it would work, I approached the hallway. My mouth dropped to the floor.